new Keynesian business cycle theory. This theory was developed originally in the Keynesian business cycle theory by John Maynard Keynes. Keynes, of course, came up with this theory during the Great Depression. He wanted to be able to explain what had happened to the world, and he came up with this idea. Now, his idea was pretty simple. He said it was caused by animal spirits. Animal spirits is something that nobody can explain. It just happens spontaneously. In his theory, business owners spontaneously decided to cut back, to start laying off employees and producing fewer goods. Now, of course, in his theory, he saw consumption as being not sticky, and so consumption would then immediately respond, and the economy would go down. The effect of this, of course, would be a reduction in velocity, and so V would go down in the equation mv equals by. And primarily, it was the result of business investment slowing. Now, the solution for him was clear by looking at his equation, the equation of GDP. Y equals C plus I plus G plus NX. He said, well, if I is the problem, if I goes down, there's nothing he can do about consumption. There's nothing he can do about net exports, not to improve them, but at least they could change government spending. And so his theory was, if Y goes down, if you go into a recession, the government should spend more. That would bring Y back up again and provide jobs. And of course, who would like this idea? Well, of course, government and politicians would like this idea because it gave them an excuse to spend money, and spending money means getting votes because you can buy people's votes with that money. Well, there's a number of problems with this theory, and in fact, none of these four theories actually work, and we'll talk about that. It's well understood that they don't. The first problem with this theory is it's not predictive. There's no way to know when animal spirits are going to happen, when they're going to go up, when they're going to go down. And so there's nothing to predict a recession or a business cycle. The second problem is that it creates crowding out. Now, we've talked about this before. In the market for loanable funds, we talked about how when the government has a deficit, that it causes the supply of loanable funds to shift to the left, and this causes interest rates to rise, and this causes the quantity of money to be lower for those in business. So the very thing that they're trying to use to, quote, solve the problem is in fact exacerbating the problem by making less money available to firms for investment. And so, again, it's not going to be a good solution. And the third problem with the new Keynesian business cycle theory is timing. You see, the average business cycle only lasts about 2 to 3 quarters. So that's about 6 to 9 months. Now, when do we know that we're in a business cycle? Well, we don't know until 2 quarters have gone by. And how long does it take before we know that those 2 quarters were actually downturns? Well, it takes about 1.5 months. So by the time the government becomes aware that there's a business cycle, we may already be coming out of the business cycle, or we may be only 45 days away from coming out of the business cycle. And government's very, very slow at spending money and getting money out into the economy to create jobs. And so by the time it actually takes that money and gets it out into the economy, the recession effectively is over. And that's one of the reasons why it took us so long to realize it didn't work, was because we would go into a recession, they would talk about spending money, they would finally start spending the money, and look, the recession ended. It must have been because the government spent that money. But in fact, the recession had already ended on its own.